The late afternoon sun bathed the rugged hills of Salta in a golden hue, casting long shadows across the cobbled streets of the village of Kachi. Wind swept gently through the ancient cypress trees, carrying with it the scent of eucalyptus and dust. In the stillness, only the sound of the church bell marked time, echoing like a heartbeat against the silence of the mountains. Lucia Morel walked slowly along the narrow path that bordered her family's vineyard. She was 17, with dark curls tied back beneath a faded scarf and eyes the color of river stone. Her boots stirred the dry soil as she moved, her gaze fixed on the sky. Something felt wrong today. The wind, usually playful, whispered warnings she could not understand. Her grandfather, Don Mateo Morel, had always told her to listen to the wind. "It carries stories, Nina," he would say, his voice worn with age and wine. "It brings the voices of those long gone, and sometimes those yet to come." Lucia stopped beside the old fig tree at the edge of the vineyard. It was there that her mother had been last seen, 8 years ago, before vanishing without a trace. Everyone said she'd gone mad and wandered into the mountains, but Lucia never believed it. Not once. Today, she found something unusual beneath the fig tree. A strip of deep blue cloth, caught on a thorny branch. It was old, frayed, but unmistakable. Her mother's shawl. Her fingers trembled as she reached for it. The scent of lavender still clung to the fabric. The world around her seemed to pause. Even the wind had gone still. Behind her, a low whistle broke the silence. She turned sharply, eyes scanning the empty path. No one. Then she heard it again, a whisper, barely a sound, drifting through the vines like a forgotten melody. It spoke her name. Lucia. She stumbled back, heart racing, clutching the shawl to her chest. The whisper faded into the wind, but something had shifted in the air. The mountains felt alive now, watching. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the distant peaks, Lucia stood at the kitchen table with her grandfather. She showed him the cloth in silence. Don Mateo stared at it for a long time. His hands, worn and shaking, reached for the shawl as if touching a ghost. "It begins again," he muttered. Lucia leaned in. "What begins again, abuelo?" His eyes lifted to hers, darker now, filled with a fear she had never seen before. "The curse of Los Condors," he said quietly. "The reason your mother disappeared. And the reason you must never go into the mountains alone." Outside, the wind returned. And this time it screamed. The next morning, Lucia woke to the sound of hushed voices. She tiptoed down the hallway and found Don Mateo in the parlor, speaking with an unfamiliar man. The visitor wore a weathered leather jacket and had a thick accent, not local. His presence was unsettling. Lucia hid behind the doorway, listening. "She has it now," Don Mateo said. "The sign. Just like her mother did." The stranger replied in a low, gravelly voice. "Then the path must be revealed. Before they do." Don Mateo nodded, rubbing his brow. "She will find it soon. She always had her mother's instinct." The man stood and left without another word, his boots echoing against the wooden floorboards. Lucia slipped away before her grandfather could notice. Later that day, as Lucia was dusting the bookshelves in the study, her hand brushed against something unusual. A hollow sound. She tapped the back panel and pried it loose. Behind it, she found a tightly rolled parchment wrapped in oilcloth and tied with twine. She opened it carefully. It was a map, aged, torn, marked with cryptic symbols and Spanish phrases that didn't make sense. At the center was a red ink circle, scrawled over a place deep in the Andes. The label read, "Valle de las Voces," the Valley of Voices. Her breath caught. She had heard the name once before, in a lullaby her mother used to sing, one that always ended in a whisper. That evening, Lucia confronted her grandfather. "I found this," she said, placing the map on the table. Don Mateo stared at it, then slowly reached for a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. "You deserve to know," he said. And he began to speak. He told her about an ancient Incan trail that wound through the Andes, about a hidden valley believed to echo with the voices of the past. He told her of explorers who had vanished, of strange lights seen in the mountains, of the legends of Los Condors, the great guardians of the sky. Then he said something that chilled her. Your mother went searching for that valley. She believed it was the key to something older than any of us. And now it's calling you too. Lucia sat back, heart pounding. The air felt heavier now. Every word he spoke wove deeper into her bones. But why? She whispered. Why would she go alone? Don Mateo looked at her for a long moment. She was not alone. That night, Lucia lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Her room felt too quiet, her thoughts too loud. The valley was out there, and someone or something was trying to draw her in. At midnight, a shadow moved past her window. She rushed outside with only her shawl and torch. Her boots cracked over the frosty grass. By the fig tree, something glinted beneath the soil. Lucia knelt, brushed the earth aside, and uncovered a silver pendant shaped like a condor in flight. She had seen it once, around her mother's neck. And beside it, a single word scratched into the stone.
Core. Run.
The morning after discovering the pendant, Lucia set off for the nearby town of Cafayate, cradled among the vineyards and copper hills. Don Mateo refused to let her go alone, but Lucia insisted. She needed answers, and she had someone in mind who might help. The only person who had ever spoken openly about the Valley of Voices was Señora Valdivia, a retired teacher who lived in an old adobe house near the plaza. Locals called her a madwoman, said she read clouds, and whispered to mirrors. But Lucia remembered her mother visiting the old woman often, always returning with strange symbols drawn in the margins of her notebooks. Lucia found Valdivia hunched over a garden of lavender, trimming leaves with trembling hands. I need to know about Valle de los Voces, Lucia said without hesitation. The old woman froze. Her gaze lifted, sharp, lucid beneath her wrinkled brow. Too late, she whispered. The valley knows your name now. Lucia showed her the pendant. Valdivia's eyes widened with a mix of fear and recognition. Where did you find this? Near the fig tree. The one where my mother disappeared. Valdivia stood slowly, brushed the soil from her skirt, and beckoned Lucia inside. The house was cluttered, filled with hanging herbs, old maps, and shelves of dog-eared journals. Valdivia reached for a thick, leather-bound book and opened it to a sketch, nearly identical to the pendant. This symbol belonged to the Orden del Cielo, a secret group that believed certain places on Earth were not bound by time. Valle de los Voces was one such place. A crossing. A crossing to what? Valdivia gave a long, wheezing breath. To whatever lies beneath the silence. Lucia studied the sketch. Her eyes landed on a faded note beside the condor symbol. Puerta de Sangre, Gate of Blood. I think my mother went there, she said. Valdivia nodded slowly. Then she may still be within its grasp. Just as Lucia opened her mouth to speak, glass shattered in the kitchen. A rock rolled across the floor. On it, a message had been scrawled in charcoal. Stop digging. Or disappear like her. Lucia ran to the window. Two shadowed figures turned the corner, disappearing into the alley. Valdivia gripped her arm. They've been watching since the pendant resurfaced. You've stirred something old and dangerous. Lucia left Café shaken, hiding the map beneath her coat. The warning made her blood run cold, but she knew the path had already begun. Back in Cachi, she found her grandfather with a stranger from before. This time, they did not hide their conversation. We leave tomorrow, Don Mateo said. You will need a guide. The stranger stepped forward and removed his hat. I am Rafael Ibarra. I knew your mother. We searched together. I was the one who made it back. Lucia's world shifted. And why should I trust you? Rafael's expression was grim. Because the valley doesn't let you go. Not unless someone takes your place. Outside, storm clouds gathered over the peaks, dark and heavy. The mountains were calling. Lucia, Don Mateo, and Rafael Ibarra set out on horseback toward the Andean ridge, known as Sierra de Cabra, following the ancient trail inked on the map. The air grew thinner as they ascended, the valleys below disappearing beneath layers of mist. Every few kilometers, Raphael paused to check faded markings carved into stones, spiral glyphs, worn condors, and etched warnings in Quechua. "This trail is older than any map," he said. "It leads to the Puerta de Sangre, the gate your mother sought." Lucia felt the pendant against her chest. The cold metal pulsed faintly with each step deeper into the mountains. By midday, the sky had turned a shade darker. Even the birds had stopped singing. They passed an abandoned outpost, where a rusted bell swung gently from the wind. Inside, skeletal remains of a small expedition lay untouched. Don Mateo said nothing, but Lucia noticed him cross himself quietly. They camped near a jagged cliff overlooking the valley. As the fire crackled, Raphael recounted what had happened 8 years ago. "We reached the valley on the 5th day. Your mother was convinced the voices would lead her to the source. She walked ahead of us, humming a lullaby I still hear in my sleep." Lucia's eyes widened. Was it this? She hummed the tune. Raphael's face paled. "That's the one." Don Mateo added softly, "It's not a song. It's a summons." That night, Lucia awoke to the wind howling through the canyons, forming fragments of words. Cor. Vuelve. She turned to find Raphael gone. Moments later, a scream echoed through the valley. Lucia and Don Mateo scrambled up the ridge toward the sound. They found Raphael crouched by a stone altar, pale and shaken. "It was her," he muttered. "I saw her standing there. Same eyes, same voice." Lucia grabbed his arm. "My mother?" Raphael nodded. But wrong. Her face, it flickered, like smoke and fire. They moved quickly. The further they descended, the more warped the world became. Trees twisted in unnatural directions, and time itself seemed to falter. Watches froze. Compass needles spun wildly. That evening, they arrived at a stone archway carved into the mountain, the entrance to Valle de los Voces. A soft hum vibrated through the earth beneath them. Raphael stepped forward and whispered, "This is where she crossed." Lucia held the pendant tightly. The stone walls around the arch were covered in blood-stained markings, now faded but still wet in places. Don Mateo turned to her. "If you go beyond this point, you do not return unchanged." Lucia looked into the valley beyond the gate and stepped forward. The world inside was eerily silent. No insects, no wind, no birds, just a soft, endless hum in the bones. The valley opened into a surreal landscape, blue-hued grass, glowing moss along stone walls, and ruins that pulsed faintly beneath the moonlight. Everything here felt suspended in a dream. Suddenly, voices began to whisper, not in the air, but inside Lucia's mind. Familiar and foreign, urgent and mournful. She turned and saw shadows moving in the distance, human shapes, flickering and translucent. One paused, and for a split second, Lucia saw her mother's face again.
Smiling. Crying.
She ran towards it, screaming, but the figure dissolved into mist. Don Mateo called after her, but she could barely hear him now. Raphael caught her arm. "It's not them. It's the valley mimicking memory." "But what if she's still here?" Lucia cried. Raphael looked away. "Then she's no longer who she was." That night, they found a journal buried beneath a cairn. It was her mother's, filled with symbols, entries in blood, and one chilling final line. "The door does not close. It chooses." Lucia studied the journal by firelight. Each page descended further into madness, the handwriting unraveling, the language shifting. But on the final page, a symbol burned through. A circle, a line, wings outstretched. Raphael gasped. The mark of exchange. Don Mateo looked grim. To enter the heart of the valley, one must offer a soul. Lucia stood. "We are not sacrificing anyone." But the ground beneath them began to shake. Rocks tumbled. Screeches echoed through the cliffs. Suddenly, a massive condor, unlike anything natural, descended from the peak. Its wings stretched wide as sails, feathers black as obsidian, eyes glowing with blue fire. It landed before them, silently watching. Then it spoke, not with words, but through thought. One must stay. One must pass. One must vanish. Lucia stepped forward, shaking. I will pass. The condor opened its wings. A path of light appeared behind it. Don Mateo whispered, Lucia, no. But she had already entered the gate. Inside, Lucia descended a spiraling tunnel etched with silver veins that pulsed like arteries. At the bottom, she emerged into a vast underground temple. Stone pillars reached to unseen ceilings. Mirrors floated in midair, each one reflecting scenes from her past, but altered. In one, her mother wept beside a crib. In another, Lucia was calling out, but no sound escaped. Then she saw it. Her mother stood at the center of the room, gazing into a broken mirror. Lucia, she turned, and her face was the same, but older.
Worn. Wrong.
Lucia ran to her. Mama, it's me. But the woman did not move. Behind her, something stirred. A shadow peeled itself from the wall. Tall, headless, cloaked in darkness. It whispered with her mother's voice.
Trade.
Or leave alone. Lucia backed away. Her real mother was trapped in reflection. This was a mimic. She raised the pendant. It pulsed brightly. The shadow recoiled. Lucia pressed it to the mirror. The glass cracked. The temple collapsed around her as the glass shattered. Her mother fell forward, gasping, aged, broken. Lucia held her close. You came back, her mother whispered. But behind them, the shadow screamed, a shrill cry that shattered stone and bone. Don Mateo and Raphael arrived, breathless. The condor hovered above, watching, waiting. One must stay. Lucia looked to her grandfather, then to Raphael. Without a word, Raphael stepped forward. She has more to live for. Lucia shouted, No! But Raphael turned, smiling sadly. She saved me once. It's my turn. He placed his hand on the condor's beak. The valley darkened. The gates sealed. They returned to Kachi under a moonless sky. The valley had disappeared from the maps. The trail was gone. Lucia's mother barely spoke for weeks, but each day, her eyes grew brighter. Don Mateo planted a new fig tree beside the old one. At its roots, they buried the pendant and Raphael's compass. Lucia stood by the vineyard one evening, listening to the wind. For the first time it was silent, but in the silence, there was peace. And somewhere, beyond the reach of time and memory, a condor soared through the sky, watching, waiting.